The speed limit of a nation. The difference between sustainable growth and demolishing infrastructure. Immigration is like pouring water into a glass. Done at a controlled pace, it is vital. Open the floodgates all at once, and everything gets ruined. By Canadian Citizens Journal. For decades, Canada maintained a relatively stable, common-sense approach to immigration. Newcomers arrived at a pace that allowed them to integrate successfully into communities, find meaningful work, and build lives, while cities had the time to build the housing, schools, and hospitals required to support a growing population. That was immigration in moderation. It respected the balance between welcoming new talent and maintaining the quality of life for the people already living here. But over the last few years, the federal government threw that balance out the window. They switched from a controlled system to a hyper-accelerated demand shock, flooding the country with millions of temporary and permanent residents simultaneously. Even the government's own massive, panicked policy reversals, forcing deep cuts to permanent resident targets and slashing new temporary visas by over 40%, are a quiet confession of an obvious truth. They grew the population faster than the country could physically build. 1. Good immigration, the controlled flow. A healthy immigration system operates like a well-managed corporation. You hire new people when you have the desk space, the budget, and the infrastructure to train and support them. Targeted to real needs. True economic immigration focuses on highly specialized missing skill sets, like doctors, nurses, and specialized tradespeople who actively add immediate value to critical, struggling sectors. Proportional to housing. A sustainable model aligns arrival numbers directly with municipal building starts. If Canada is only building 200,000 new housing units a year, your population growth shouldn't exceed what those units can physically hold. Mutual respect for the social contract. When entry is moderate, newcomers don't have to compete frantically with local citizens for entry-level survival jobs, and local taxpayers don't see their own access to healthcare or affordable housing completely wiped out. 2. Bad immigration, the floodgates. When you flood a nation's population too fast without expanding its physical foundation, it ceases to be an immigration strategy and becomes a crisis of resource depletion. The low-wage corporate loophole. Rather than bringing in world-class doctors, the system was twisted into a pipeline of low-wage temporary labor to serve major corporations and fast food chains. This didn't fill critical shortages, it simply allowed corporations to keep wages artificially low, undercutting local Canadian teenagers, students, and low-income workers, crushing the rental market. When hundreds of thousands of people arrive in a compressed time frame, they don't buy houses immediately, they flood the rental market. This artificial demand drove vacancy rates to historic lows and caused average rents to skyrocket across the country, pricing local single parents, seniors, and working-class families out of a place to live. The medical meltdown. Our healthcare infrastructure was already stretched thin, dumping massive numbers of new users into the provincial health networks without expanding the number of hospitals, emergency rooms, or family doctors didn't build a stronger Canada. It just diluted medical care for everyone, resulting in lethal wait times. 3. The reversal is the proof. Those who want to label real-world frustration as misinformation or xenophobia need to look at the data. The pressure on our system became so undeniable that the government was forced to execute a massive policy U-turn. They implemented unprecedented caps on international study permits, froze low-wage foreign worker streams in multiple major cities, and dragged permanent targets down significantly. Independent economic tracking has already shown that the moment these population inflows began to cool, apartment rental spikes finally began to stall out after nearly 2 years of consecutive records. This is absolute mathematical proof that the crisis wasn't a random global phenomenon. It was an internally engineered policy failure. The core conclusion: acknowledging that a country has a physical speed limit isn't a radical position. It is a basic engineering fact. You cannot fix a housing shortage, a medical crisis, or a broken job market while simultaneously pumping the accelerator on population growth. It is entirely reasonable for Canadian citizens to demand a return to an orderly, moderate, and sustainable system that respects the taxpayers who built the foundation in the first place. If the government can't manage the flow, they have no business running the tap.